Donald Cerrone versus Anthony Pettis 2, the rematch took place to headline the prelims of UFC 249, Ferguson versus Gaethje, and the entire card has just wrapped up. It was an amazing card start to finish, but I wanted to talk about this one, and more importantly, straight away in this reaction video to the fight, I want to talk about the decision, because I thought it was a little bit of a robbery, to be honest with you. Not a major robbery, not a bank robbery, just a little bit of a house robbery, smash a few windows, take some jewelry, and get out the other way. We're not talking any grand heists, you know what I'm saying? But there was a bit of a robbery going on here. I thought Donald Cerrone won the fight against Anthony Pettis. I thought Donald Cerrone very clearly and very easily, scorably, if that's a word, won first 2 rounds. Pretty clearly, in my opinion, he won those first 2 rounds. And I thought Anthony Pettis won the 3rd round, meaning that Donald Cerrone should have won the fight 2 rounds to 1. I have no idea how they came to the conclusion of Anthony Pettis. However, let's run through some information here. If we look at the stats, these have been recounted. At first, it was a little bit inaccurate, but now they have recounted them. 63 significant strikes to Anthony Pettis, 62 significant strikes to Donald Cerrone. But of course, fights are judged on rounds, so that doesn't really matter to us in terms of who landed more overall. Who won the rounds? Donald Cerrone in the first round outlanded Anthony Pettis by 2 strikes. You know what else he did in that round at the very end? He took Anthony Pettis down and held him there for a bit and had control. It wasn't a takedown where Anthony Pettis popped straight back up and immediately scrambled. It was a takedown where Donald Cerrone was on top and Donald Cerrone was in control, and Donald Cerrone, even in some of these takedowns in the fights, in both of them, had side control of Anthony Pettis at one point. I believe it was in the first round that happened. So in my opinion, if someone's outstriking the other person and scores a takedown on top of it in the first round, that round goes to Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Round 2 comes around. Anthony Pettis ends up outstriking Donald Cerrone on total strikes, because if you look at the totals, Anthony Pettis was landing a lot of little niggly shots with just the wrist flick action going on. Like, they weren't very big shots, but he ended up landing quite a few of them, skewering some of the results in this second round. But either way, Anthony Pettis won by 1 strike, but still, Donald Cerrone got a takedown at the end of the round and established some kind of control. If there is 1 strike within the round and someone at the end of it scores a takedown and gets control, winning a whole other dimension of the fight, I am willing to give Cerrone that round. I don't know about you guys, and I think we're going to need some more explaining from the judges. But who am I kidding? We're not going to get any explaining from the judges, because we never fucking do. Who knows what's going through their fucking minds, to be honest, and who knows if they're even watching. I think if the round is even and one guy scores a takedown at the end, he wins the round. In the first round, Cerrone was winning, and he scored a takedown at the end. He wins that round. In the 3rd round, Pettis landed more than Cerrone. Cerrone couldn't get a good takedown. I understand giving that round to Pettis, but even then in the 3rd round, I don't understand how they can give this fight to Pettis based on rounds. Maybe the 3rd round goes to Pettis. I get that. 3rd round goes to Pettis. He landed some good shots. He was landing some good shots throughout the fight as well. He landed some shots that really stopped Cerrone in his tracks, but they didn't rock Cerrone. You know, they didn't have Cerrone fucking wobbly-legged all over the place, worrying about being KO'd in a few seconds. Anthony Pettis went out there, and by the way, let's talk about the fight other than the robbery. It was a bad decision. It should have gone to Cerrone. I don't know why it didn't go to Cerrone. This is really affecting his career now. If Cerrone would have won that fight, he'd be back on top, looking for a main event with Dan Hooker. The winner of that would be looking for some kind of title elimination bout or title fight, who knows. That would completely change Donald Cerrone's trajectory on his career. But they've fucked him over here by giving Pettis the win. Cerrone could be fired for this. I know you don't really say fired, you say cut from the UFC, but still, Cerrone could lose his job for this decision. That's where it really bothers me. You've got people's lives at stake here. You know, you've got their futures at stake. You've got their careers hanging by a thread in some of these judges' decisions. You need to get these right. And I don't know how many more times I can say it. It's fairly straightforward. Why not just have someone count strikes, and if there's someone that gets a takedown, they win? If I was anyway going to organize a judging system for this fight in hindsight, you know what I would do? I would have a man sitting in the corner of the, not in the corner of the ring, on the outside of the cage, looking in. I'd have him have a buzzer in one hand and a buzzer in the other. Every time Pettis lands a shot, left hand goes down on the buzzer. Every time Cerrone lands a shot, right hand goes down on the buzzer. Let's get a real count, live action, so the judges can know who landed more at the end of the round and take that into consideration rather than, well, I don't know what I saw, so I'll just go with this. Like, let's really get some facts here with this judging. I don't think it should be opinion based. I think we should resort to the facts. Neither guy landed any crippling blows in the fight. Cerrone outlanded him and got the takedowns at the end of the rounds. And the second round was close. Pettis outscored him by 1 strike, but Cerrone got the takedown at the end of the round. I give those to Cerrone. I don't understand how it's so difficult, but they messed it up, and they were messing up a lot of decisions. Someone gave Verdum the fight over Olenek. Someone gave Waterson the fight over Esparza. There was something going on, and I don't understand how it was worse tonight than it ever was before, because there was no crowd. How could you be swayed? There was no big reaction to the shots that Pettis was landing. Like, it was very unbiased because of that. There was no roar as Cerrone glanced off of a head kick. This was very easy to score. This should have been the easiest night of fights to score of all time. No crowd, no distractions. We should have got the most accurate results from the judges whatsoever, and they have failed us once more, and nothing's going to happen. No one knows their names, unless you look it up. And even then, they're not going to get fired. They're going to face no repercussion. The half of Donald Cerrone's purse, which is about $250,000, that's not going to go anywhere. The judges don't lose any money. Donald Cerrone does. I just don't understand why they did it. But let's talk about the fight. Robbery aside, the fight was good. It was not how I expected it to go. I thought Pettis would win. I picked Pettis to win. You know, like, I almost got 100% until the co-main and main event, which were a little bit weird, to be honest with you, and I don't really like them. But, like, I got 100% of the entire card if you count this win from Pettis until the co-main and main event. I have every right to say I predicted this fight correctly and Anthony Pettis should have rightly won. I could sit on that and say I was right, I'm great. I don't think he won it. Cerrone did quite clearly to me. But it was a close fight, so I get it. But I just don't think that there should be these little mistakes. I think it was very easy to score. As much as it was a close fight in terms of strikes, in terms of competitiveness, I think the scoring of the fight was very easy. Maybe easier than some of the other fights on the card, because it was just obvious. Nothing but evenness. Someone gets a takedown at the end of the round. They win that round, and Donald Cerrone did a great fight. First of all, let's talk about Pettis. He really let me down, because I actually picked... If I thought that Pettis was going to win, I thought that he might be able to do it by first round KO. That's what I said he would do. Pettis gave Cerrone 3 minutes of rest time in the first round without pressuring him at all. That really annoyed me from Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis knew in this fight that he had to go out there and he had to crush Cerrone in the first round. In the first round of this fight, Anthony Pettis danced around on the outside, threw a bunch of feints, and connected with nothing important whatsoever, furthering my belief that Cerrone does not change. Whether he wins or loses, it's not about him not showing up that night. It's just some guys don't have the IQ, or fight IQ, sorry, they might have good IQ, don't have the fight IQ, don't have the skill to really punish him in those early rounds. And Pettis was one of those guys. He takes some warming up as well sometimes. He didn't have that aggression, that blitz that you need to really make Cerrone panic in the first round, and Cerrone started firing off some good shots. It was a great fight. It wasn't how I expected it to go whatsoever. But either way, Cerrone should have won in my opinion. And now what do you do? That's the big problem with it all. Now what do you do? Because Cerrone's now on a 4-fight losing streak. Usually you get cut after 3. You know, now it's 4. What are they going to do? They're not going to cut Donald Cerrone, I know that. They're not going to do that over a split decision. It won't happen. But he's in a very bad situation now, because if he does lose again, they're not going to do him any more favours, I don't think, even if he does get robbed. Anthony Pettis just got a big win. But for Cerrone right now, what's next? I'll tell you what's next. Jeremy Stephens at 155. Jeremy Stephens just lost a fight to Qatar. We'll talk about that one in its own video. He lost a fight. He missed weight for that fight, which means that he should probably be moving up in weight anyway, because that's usually what the UFC tells guys to do. So if I would be 100% down to see a Stephens versus Cerrone fight at 155, but just not now. Cerrone, take some time. In 6 months, let's see Cerrone versus Stephens at 155. Loser goes home for good. No more babying them because they're veterans. Let's put the two of them together. They're both on huge loss streaks and sell it as the backs are against the wall. who's going to stay in the UFC amongst the best fighters in the world? Cerrone or Stephens at 55? It's a matchup we've never seen before. Two great veterans. Sign me up to that fight. That's the co-main event of any fight night. It's on the main card of any pay-per-view. It's the headliner of any great pay-per-view prelims. Sign me up. Cerrone versus Stephens. On the other hand, you've got Pettis. What does Pettis do? I don't know what Pettis does, because this fight was at 170, not at 155. So the rankings at 155 aren't going to change all that much, to be honest with you. It's not like Pettis won this at 55 and is now going to skyrocket up those rankings. But what it does do for Pettis is it just means that he's coming off a win now. So Pettis has call-out power again. Who is Pettis going to fight next? I have no idea. But I think there's a chance he might call out Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker needs an opponent. Conor McGregor, since now that Gaethje's beat Ferguson and will now be taking on Khabib, is left out on his own. I don't think he's going to do the Nate Diaz trilogy fight yet. He's calling out Dustin Poirier a little bit as well. That leaves Dan Hooker in a little bit of a situation. Dan Hooker versus Anthony Pettis is a great fight to make, and I would watch that any day of the week. Anthony Pettis versus Charles Oliveira rematch. Great fight to make. Pettis definitely deserves a jump up the rankings here, even though it was close, and it was a bit of a robbery. He won, technically, on the judges' scorecards, so he won. He's going to get a jump up. That's what happens with Pettis. He loses, he gets sunk back down. He wins, he jumps straight back up. That's what happens in Pettis' career, and it's happened for his entire career, start to finish. For the last 5 years, anyway. But either way, Pettis versus Dan Hooker sounds good. Pettis versus Ferguson 2. I don't even know, but that could be a thing that happens, I guess, as well. I just don't like the decision. I don't like that Cerrone's career has been altered by this. And I just don't like it, to be honest. I wouldn't have been happy whoever lost, but I'd rather have had it a bit more definitive. Rather than feel a bit weird, like Cerrone didn't really lose. Let's do Cerrone versus Stephens. Loser goes home this time for real. Come on, it's about time. There's only so many times these veterans can lose in a row before you get rid of them. Cerrone versus Stephens, 155. No more 45 for Stephens. No more 170 for Cerrone. Let's make that cut one more time, and let's fight for your career. That's what I feel like should happen next. But in the fight, Pettis was doing good. He was circling. Cerrone was doing good. He looked very crisp. He was throwing good combinations, great head kicks. Pettis was looking for the body kick like he did in the first fight as well. I just thought that Cerrone got the better of him. With those takedowns at the end of rounds 1 and 2, I thought it was fairly impossible to score those rounds for Pettis after seeing that at the end of them. But they did, because the judges are the judges. And they're retarded. And it really confuses me why they're allowed to keep their jobs. But they are allowed to keep their jobs. Fair enough. It was a close fight. So I guess no one's going to complain that much. But there's literally $250,000 for Donald Cerrone on the line. I think we can complain a little bit, to be honest with you. Good fight while it lasted. I thought it was going to be a shutout from Pettis. That didn't happen. I thought if it wasn't a shutout from Pettis, it was going to be a failed shutout from Pettis. And Cerrone would finish him in the second or third. We got a bit of everything. Mix 'em up decision that wasn't a big war but wasn't boring. A great fight, entertaining while it lasted. For 3 rounds, I just thought Cerrone should have won. I'm not too hard done by about it, to be honest with you, but those are the things I'd like to see happen next. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button there. Goodbye. See you later.